The dust-laden wind carried the scent of blood before Logan Elliott saw her. In the fading light of a Montana sunset in 1878, a woman stumbled across the plains toward his ranch house, her silhouette broken and unsteady against the purple horizon. Logan dropped the fence post he'd been carrying and ran, his spurs jingling with each desperate stride. As he drew closer, he could see her clearly. Her calico dress was torn at the shoulder, dirt-streaked and bloodied, and a crimson line traced her cheekbone where something or someone had cut her. Her eyes, wide with fear, locked onto him like he might be another threat. "Please," she whispered, her voice as dry as the prairie around them. "Help me." When she collapsed, Logan caught her, cradling her against his chest. Her auburn hair fell across his arm as he lifted her, light as a whisper despite the gravity of her circumstances. He scanned the horizon, seeing nothing but the endless Montana territory stretching in all directions. Whoever had done this to her was gone, at least for now. "No one hurts you again," he said firmly, though she'd already lost consciousness. "I promise you that." He carried her to his modest ranch house, kicking open the door with the toe of his boot. Inside, he gently laid her on his bed, then hurried to fetch water from the kitchen pump and clean rags from the trunk at the foot of the bed. He hadn't tended a woman's wounds before, but 5 years of ranching alone had taught him a thing or two about doctoring. As he cleaned the blood from her face, he noted her delicate features, high cheekbones, a small nose, and lips that might have been full if they weren't so parched. Her breathing was shallow but steady. The cut on her face wasn't deep, thankfully, but the bruises forming along her jaw and neck told a more sinister story. She stirred as he dabbed at the cut, her eyes fluttering, open eyes the color of moss after a spring rain. "Where am I?" she asked, her voice barely audible. "My ranch, about 15 miles outside of Silverwood," Logan replied, dipping the cloth back into the water. "I'm Logan Elliott. Found you wandering toward my house like you'd been chased by the devil himself." She tried to sit up but winced and fell back. "Easy now," Logan cautioned. "You're safe here, but you're hurt. What's your name, miss?" "Katherine," she replied after a hesitant pause. "Katherine Vance." "Miss Vance," Logan nodded. "Care to tell me who did this to you?" Katherine's eyes darted to the window as if expecting to see her attacker peering in. "Men from the Blackrock Mining Company. Her voice faltered. "They came to our homestead. My father refused to sell. They said they'd make him change his mind." Logan's jaw tightened. He'd heard tales of the Blackrock men, ruthless enforcers working for Eastern industrialists looking to strip the Montana territory of its riches before statehood came. They weren't above intimidation, or worse. "Your father," Logan said gently. "Is he?" Katherine's eyes welled with tears. "I don't know. There was gunfire. I ran. They chased me for a while, but I lost them in the hills before nightfall. I've been walking since." "You're safe now," Logan assured her, setting aside the bloody cloth. "Tomorrow I'll ride out to your homestead, see what happened. For now, you need rest." "Thank you," Katherine whispered, her eyes heavy with exhaustion. "But they'll come looking for me. I can't stay and bring trouble to your door." Logan stood, his tall frame silhouetted against the lantern light. At 32, he'd seen enough of life to know that sometimes trouble found you whether you invited it or not. "Miss Vance, I've been handling my own troubles since I was 15 years old. A few mining company thugs don't scare me." He adjusted his worn leather vest. "You rest, I'll keep watch." As Katherine drifted into fitful sleep, Logan sat in the rocking chair by the window, his Winchester rifle across his lap. Dawn was still hours away, and with it would come decisions that might change both their lives forever. For now, he was content to watch over this stranger who had stumbled into his life like a wounded bird. When morning broke over the eastern hills, Katherine awoke to the smell of coffee and bacon. She winced as she sat up, her body aching from her ordeal. The events of the previous day came rushing back, bringing with them a wave of grief and fear that threatened to overwhelm her. "You're awake," Logan said from the doorway, holding a steaming mug. "Thought you might want some coffee." Katherine accepted the mug with trembling hands. "Thank you." "For everything," Logan nodded, his expression unreadable beneath his stubbled jaw. "Are you feeling up to eating something?" "Yes," she replied, realizing she was famished. "But then I should go. I need to find out what happened to my father." "I've saddled my horse," Logan said. "After breakfast, we'll ride out to your homestead together." Katherine looked up sharply. "You don't have to do that." "Maybe not," Logan agreed, "but I'm going to." They ate a simple breakfast in near silence, Katherine stealing glances at her rescuer. Logan Elliott wasn't what she'd expected in a rancher out here in the Montana territory. His hands were calloused from work, yes, but there was a gentleness to his movements. His eyes, a deep blue that reminded her of mountain lakes, seemed to hold more stories than his years should allow. He wore his dark blonde hair longer than was fashionable back east, and his sun-browned face spoke of years under the open sky. After breakfast, Logan offered Katherine one of his shirts to replace her torn dress. It hung on her like a tent, but she gratefully accepted, pinning it at the waist with a length of rope he provided. "It's not the latest fashion," Logan commented with the hint of a smile, "but it'll keep the sun off." The ride to the Vance homestead took nearly 2 hours. As they crested the final hill, Katherine's breath caught in her throat. The small cabin where she'd grown up was still standing, but the barn was a charred skeleton, wisps of smoke still rising from its remains. "Papa," she whispered, nudging her borrowed horse forward. Logan caught up to her as she dismounted in the yard. "Wait," he cautioned, drawing his revolver. "Let me check first." The cabin was empty, but signs of struggle were everywhere: overturned furniture, shattered dishes, a splash of dried blood on the floor that made Katherine's heart lurch. Outside, Logan examined the ground, reading the signs written in the dirt. Several horses, he noted, men dragging something. He looked up at Katherine, his expression grim. A body. Katherine's knees buckled. Logan was at her side instantly, supporting her with a strong arm around her waist. "I should have stayed," she sobbed. "I shouldn't have run." "If you'd stayed, you'd be dead too," Logan said firmly. "Your father wanted you to live, Katherine. That's why he told you to run, wasn't it?" She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "But where is he? Where did they take him?" Logan continued examining the ground. "Tracks lead west toward Silverwood. If they killed him, they might have taken him to town to make an example of him." Katherine wiped her tears, a new hardness entering her eyes. "Then we go to Silverwood." "We need to be smart about this," Logan cautioned. "Blackrock practically owns that town, sheriff's in their pocket. We can't just ride in demanding answers." "What do you suggest?" Katherine asked. Logan sighed, looking toward the horizon. "I know someone in town. An old friend who runs the saloon. He hears things. Let me talk to him first, find out what happened. And leave me here," Katherine gestured at the violated homestead. "No," Logan said firmly. "You're coming back to my ranch. You'll be safe there while I ride into town." "Mr. Elliott," Katherine said, squaring her shoulders. "I appreciate your help, truly I do, but this is my father we're talking about. I'm coming with you." Logan studied her face, the determination in her eyes, the set of her jaw. Despite her injuries, despite everything she'd been through, there was steel in Katherine Vance. "All right," he conceded, "but we do this my way, and you call me Logan." Back at the ranch, Logan helped Katherine find more suitable clothing. From a trunk in the corner of his bedroom, he pulled out a dress that looked as if it hadn't seen daylight in years. "It was my sister's," he explained, handling the fabric with care. "She passed on 5 winters ago. Fever took her." He cleared his throat. "Might be a bit long, but it should fit otherwise." Katherine accepted the dress with reverence, understanding that this was no small offering. "Thank you, I'll take good care of it." While she changed, Logan prepared for their journey to town. He strapped on his gun belt, checking the chambers of his Colt revolver before sliding it home in its holster. He packed saddlebags with provisions and ammunition, unsure of what they might encounter. When Katherine emerged wearing his sister's dress, Logan felt a strange tightness in his chest. The blue calico suited her, bringing out the green in her eyes. She'd done her best with her hair, too, pinning it up in a simple but elegant style that made her look less like a woman who'd fled for her life and more like a proper lady. "Will I do?" she asked, noticing his stare. Logan nodded, finding his voice. "You'll do just fine." They set out for Silverwood as the sun began its westward journey. Logan explained his plan as they rode. "My friend Liam owns the Silver Dollar. It's the biggest saloon in town, which means he hears everything worth knowing. If something happened to your father in Silverwood, Liam will know about it." "And you trust this man?" Katherine asked. "With my life," Logan confirmed. "We fought together in the war, Confederate side," he added, watching for her reaction. Katherine merely nodded. "My father was Union." "But that was a long time ago." "Yes," Logan agreed quietly. "A lifetime ago." As they approached Silverwood, the first buildings of the town came into view, a scatter of wooden structures that had sprouted like mushrooms after the silver strike 5 years earlier. What had once been a sleepy trading post was now a bustling mining town, complete with all the vices and virtues that such places attracted. Logan guided them down a side street, avoiding the main thoroughfare. "Blackrock headquarters is at the end of Main Street," he explained. "Better if we don't parade right past their front door." They left their horses at a small livery stable owned by another of Logan's acquaintances, a grizzled old-timer named Jebediah who asked no questions beyond what was necessary to care for the animals. "Staying long, Elliott?" Jebediah inquired, pocketing the coins Logan handed him. "Not if I can help it," Logan replied. "Keep an eye out, will you? Might need to leave in a hurry." Jebediah's roomy eyes flicked to Katherine, then back to Logan. "Always do, son, always do." The Silver Dollar was doing a brisk business despite the early hour. Cowboys, miners, and townspeople crowded the bar and tables, the air thick with smoke and raucous conversation. Logan kept Katherine close, his hand at the small of her back as he guided her through the crowd to a door marked "Private" at the rear of the establishment. He knocked 3 times, then twice more, a signal. The door opened to reveal a tall, broad-shouldered man with a shock of red hair and a neatly trimmed beard. "Logan Elliott," the man grinned, pulling Logan into a brief embrace. "Been too long, brother." "Liam," Logan nodded. "Need to talk privately." Liam's eyes shifted to Katherine, widening slightly at the sight of her healing face. "Of course, come in." Inside Liam's office, Logan made quick introductions and explained their situation. Liam's expression grew increasingly grim as Logan detailed the attack on the Vance homestead and Katherine's narrow escape. "Damn Blackrock vultures," Liam muttered when Logan finished. "They've been getting bolder. Used to be they'd just threaten, maybe rough a man up a bit, but lately." He shook his head. "My father," Katherine prompted, leaning forward. "Do you know what happened to him?" Liam exchanged a look with Logan before answering. "Yes, Miss Vance, I'm afraid I do," he sighed heavily. "They brought a body in yesterday evening. Said he was a claim jumper who resisted arrest when their men caught him trespassing on Blackrock property." Katherine's hand flew to her mouth. "That's a lie. That land has been ours for 10 years. "I know," Liam said soothingly. "But Blackrock has the deeds to half the county now, legitimate or not, and they've got Judge Wilson in their pocket to make it all look legal." "Where is he now?" Logan asked quietly. "Undertaker has him," Liam replied. "Hawkins, down on Pine Street." "Decent man, not in Blackrock's pay as far as I know." Katherine stood suddenly. "I need to see him, I need to." Her voice broke. Logan rose beside her, placing a gentle hand on her arm. "We will. But first we need to know what we're up against. Liam, who specifically did this, who gave the order." "That'd be Victor Kane," Liam said, his mouth twisting as if the name tasted foul. "Blackrock's head of security, mean as a rattlesnake and twice as quick to strike. He's got about 5 men who ride with him, doing the company's dirty work." "And they're in town now?" Logan asked. "Kane and 3 of his boys are at the Grand Hotel," Liam confirmed. "Been celebrating their lawful acquisition of the Vance property since yesterday." Katherine's face hardened. I want to see my father, then I want justice. Liam looked at her with newfound respect. Miss Vance, justice is in short supply in Silverwood these days, but if anyone can help you find some, it's Logan Elliott. He turned to his friend. What's your play here, Logan? Logan's expression was unreadable. First, we confirm it's her father, then we get him a proper burial, after that. He met Catherine's gaze. After that, we see about justice. The undertaker's establishment was a small, plain building with black curtains drawn across the windows. A bell tinkled softly as Logan and Katherine entered, the smell of chemicals and something less pleasant hanging in the air. Elijah Hawkins emerged from a back room, wiping his hands on a cloth. He was a thin, solemn man with spectacles perched on his nose and a perpetually furrowed brow. Mr. Elliott, he nodded to Logan. What brings you to my establishment, Mr. Hawkins? Logan replied. This is Miss Katherine Vance. We understand you're caring for her father. Understanding dawned on Hawkins' face. Ah, yes, the gentleman brought in yesterday. They said he had no family. They lied, Katherine said simply. Hawkins nodded. I suspected as much. This way, please. He led them to a small room where a body lay covered with a sheet on a wooden table. With practiced gentleness, Hawkins folded back the sheet to reveal the face of Samuel Vance. Katherine's composure finally broke. She fell to her knees beside the table, sobbing as she touched her father's cold face. Logan stood back, giving her the privacy of her grief, but his eyes never left her shaking form. After a few moments, Katherine rose, wiping her tears. How did he die? She asked Hawkins. The undertaker hesitated. The official report says he was shot resisting arrest. And the truth, Logan pressed. Hawkins sighed. He was beaten severely before being shot at close range, execution style. Katherine closed her eyes, swaying slightly. Logan moved to her side, steadying her with a hand at her elbow. I'd like to arrange for a proper burial, she said finally. As soon as possible. Of course, Hawkins agreed. Though I should warn you, Miss Vance, Blackrock men often attend burials of those they've dealt with. To ensure there's no trouble. Let them come, Katherine said, her voice steely despite her tears. Outside the undertaker's, Katherine took a deep breath of fresh air. The sun was setting, painting Silverwood's buildings in hues of gold and crimson. What now? She asked Logan. Now we find somewhere safe to spend the night, he replied. Tomorrow's soon enough to make arrangements with Hawkins. And after the burial, Logan studied her face. That depends on what you want, Katherine. If it's to leave this place behind, I'll see you safely wherever you want to go. If it's justice, he left the sentence unfinished. Justice, Katherine said firmly. My father deserves that much. They found lodging at a small boarding house run by a widow named Mrs. Pemberton, who asked no questions about Katherine's healing face or why they needed 2 rooms with no luggage. Logan paid for 3 nights, hoping it would be enough time. That evening, they spoke quietly over a simple meal in Mrs. Pemberton's dining room, planning their next steps. Katherine insisted on staying for her father's burial, despite the danger. After that, she said, pushing the food around on her plate, I don't know, I have an aunt in San Francisco, I suppose I could go there. Logan nodded, though something in his expression tightened. That would be safest. But you don't think I should, Katherine observed. It's not my place to say, Logan replied carefully. I'm asking anyway. Logan set down his fork. Running doesn't always solve problems. Sometimes they follow you. You think Blackrock would pursue me all the way to California? I think men like Victor Kane don't like loose ends, Logan said. And you're a witness to murder. Katherine considered this. So what's the alternative? Stay and fight. One woman against a mining company with endless resources. Not alone, Logan said quietly. Their eyes met across the table, something unspoken passing between them. In the short time they'd known each other, a bond had forged in crisis, perhaps, but no less real for that. Why would you help me? Katherine asked. You've done more than enough already. Logan looked away, uncomfortable with the question. Let's just say I know something about losing family to men who think they're above the law. Katherine wanted to press further, but she sensed his reluctance. Instead, she reached across the table and placed her hand over his. "Thank you, Logan." "For everything." He turned his hand to clasp hers briefly, his calloused thumb brushing across her knuckles before he withdrew. "Get some rest, Katherine. Tomorrow won't be easy." The burial took place the following afternoon in Silverwood's small cemetery on the outskirts of town. Reverend Thomas spoke briefly over Samuel Vance's pine coffin, his words carrying on the wind to the small gathering Katherine, Logan, Liam, and a handful of townspeople who'd known Samuel from his infrequent visits to town. And as Hawkins had predicted, Victor Kane and two of his men watched from horseback at a distance, making no attempt to hide their presence or their contempt for the proceedings. Katherine stood straight-backed beside the grave, her borrowed black dress, another of Logan's sister's garments, rippling in the breeze. She didn't shed a tear, having spent them all the previous night. Instead, she fixed her gaze on the coffin as it was lowered into the ground, memorizing every detail of this moment, feeding the flame of resolve that burned within her. When the ceremony concluded, the townspeople offered their condolences and drifted away, casting nervous glances toward the Blackrock men. Liam pressed Katherine's hand between both of his. "If there's anything you need, Miss Vance, you've only to ask," he said earnestly. "Thank you," Katherine replied. "You've been very kind." As Liam departed, Logan touched Katherine's elbow. "We should go," she nodded, but as they turned to leave, the sound of approaching hoofbeats made them pause. Victor Kane and his men were riding toward them. Kane was a tall, lean man with cold eyes and a thin mustache. He wore expensive clothes, a black suit, and a silk vest incongruous with the rugged frontier town. His men were more typically dressed in worn denim and leather, their expressions blank as they flanked their boss. "Miss Vance, I presume," Kane said, tipping his hat with mock courtesy. "Allow me to offer my condolences on your loss." Katherine's jaw tightened, but she remained silent. "Your father was a stubborn man," Kane continued, ignoring her silence. "Had he simply accepted Blackrock's generous offer, well," he gestured toward the fresh grave. "Such a waste." "Say what you came to say, Kane," Logan interjected, his hand drifting toward his holstered revolver. Kane's gaze shifted to Logan, assessing. "Elliott. Hadn't heard you were involved in this matter." "I am now," Logan said simply. A tense silence stretched between them before Kane smiled thinly. "I merely wanted to inform Miss Vance that Blackrock Mining has legally acquired her father's property. Any personal effects she wishes to collect must be removed within 3 days, after which time everything on the property becomes company possession." "That land was stolen," Katherine said, finding her voice at last. "Through intimidation and murder." Kane's smile didn't waver. "The county records office would disagree, Miss Vance. Your father signed the deed transfer himself." "Under duress," Katherine countered, "before you killed him." "Careful with such accusations," Kane warned, his pleasant tone at odds with the threat in his eyes. "The official finding is that Samuel Vance was shot while resisting lawful arrest for claim jumping on Blackrock property." Logan stepped forward, placing himself partially between Katherine and Kane. "You've delivered your message. Now ride on." For a moment, Kane looked as if he might argue, but something in Logan's stance made him reconsider. "As you wish. Good day, Miss Vance, Mr. Elliott." With a final tip of his hat, he wheeled his horse around, his men following suit. As they rode away, Katherine let out a shaky breath. "He's the one," she whispered. "He's the one who hit me, who ordered my father's death. I recognize his voice." Logan watched the retreating figures. "Then he's the one who'll answer for it." They returned to Mrs. Pemberton's boarding house in silence, each lost in thought. In her room, Katherine sat on the edge of the bed, running her fingers over the simple gold locket that had been her mother's, the only possession she'd managed to keep during her flight from the homestead. A knock at the door roused her from her reverie. "Katherine." Logan's voice came through the wood. "May I come in? I need to speak with you." She opened the door to find him looking troubled, his hat in his hands. "What is it?" Logan glanced down the hallway before entering, closing the door behind him. Liam sent word. "Kane's men are asking questions about you all over town. They know you're staying here." Catherine's heart raced. "What does that mean?" "It means we need to move," Logan said grimly. "Tonight, it's not safe here anymore." "Where can we go?" "My ranch, for now," Logan replied. "It's isolated enough that they won't find you easily." Katherine paced the small room. "And then what? Hide forever? Run to San Francisco and hope they don't follow?" She stopped, facing him. "No, I want justice for my father." Logan ran a hand through his hair, sighing. "Katherine, I understand how you feel, but do you?" She interrupted. "Do you understand what it's like to watch your father's murderer stand over his grave and smile?" Something dark flashed in Logan's eyes. "Yes," he said quietly. "I do." Catherine's anger faltered. "What happened?" Logan looked away, his jaw working. "My father was killed by cattle rustlers when I was 15. They hung him from his own barn rafters while I watched from the hayloft where I was hiding." He paused, the memory clearly painful. "Later, I saw those same men drinking in a saloon in the next county over, laughing, spending the money they got for our cattle." "What did you do?" Katherine asked softly. "What any fool boy of 15 would do," Logan said bitterly. "I confronted them. Got myself nearly beaten to death for my trouble. But you survived." "A passing stranger intervened," Logan explained. "Taught me something important, that revenge without planning is just suicide." Katherine absorbed this. "So you're saying we need a plan?" "I'm saying if we're going to get justice for your father, real justice, not just bloody revenge, we need to be smarter than Kane and his backers." Katherine nodded slowly. "All right, what do you propose?" "First, we get you somewhere safe," Logan said. "Then we gather evidence of what really happened to your father. Blackrock may own the local law, but the U.S. Marshal's office in Helena might take an interest if we can prove murder." "Evidence," Katherine repeated. "Like what?" "Witnesses, documentation of threats. Proof that your father's signature on that deed was forced." Logan's expression was determined. "It won't be easy, but it's possible." Katherine studied him, this man who had already risked so much for a stranger. "Why are you doing this, Logan? Truly?" Logan met her gaze steadily. "Because it's right, and because—" He hesitated. "Because when I found you on the prairie, something inside me knew that our paths crossing wasn't chance." The intensity in his blue eyes made Katherine's breath catch. In the midst of grief and danger, something else was growing between them, something neither had anticipated but both could feel. "We should go," Logan said finally, breaking the moment. "Pack what you need. I'll meet you downstairs in 10 minutes." They slipped out of Silverwood under cover of darkness, taking a roundabout route back to Logan's ranch. The journey was tense, both of them constantly scanning the horizon for pursuers, but they reached the ranch house without incident as dawn was breaking. "It's not much," Logan said as he helped Katherine down from her horse, "but it's mine, paid for free and clear." "It's wonderful," Katherine replied sincerely, taking in the solid log structure and the sweeping vista beyond. The mountains rose in the distance, their peaks tinged pink with the rising sun. Despite everything, she felt a sense of peace here. Inside, Logan built a fire in the stone fireplace while Katherine unpacked the few provisions they'd brought from town. They worked in companionable silence, moving around each other with an ease that belied their short acquaintance. As they sat down to a simple breakfast, Logan outlined his plan. "We'll stay here a few days, let things cool down in town. Meanwhile, I'll reach out to some people I trust, see if anyone witnessed what happened at your homestead or has had similar run-ins with Blackrock." "And if we find evidence," Katherine asked, "then we take it to U.S. Marshal Daniel Hayward in Helena," Logan replied. "He's a good man. Incorruptible. If anyone can stand against Blackrock, it's Hayward." Katherine nodded, but doubt crept into her expression. "And if we can't find evidence, if it comes down to my word against Kane's," Logan reached across the table to take her hand. "Then we'll face that when the time comes." One step at a time, Katherine. She squeezed his hand gratefully, drawing strength from his steady presence. For the first time since her father's death, she felt a glimmer of hope. The next few days fell into a rhythm. During daylight hours, Logan rode the boundaries of his property, watching for signs of Blackrock men. Katherine, determined not to be idle, took over the household tasks, finding comfort in the normalcy of cooking and cleaning. In the evenings, they sat before the fire, talking. Katherine told Logan about her childhood in Missouri, her mother's death from typhoid when she was 12, and her father's decision to seek a fresh start in Montana territory. Logan shared stories of his time in the Confederate cavalry during the war, his sister's life and death, and his dreams for the ranch. "I want to raise horses eventually," he confessed one night, his face animated in the firelight. "Not just cattle." "There's good money in Army contracts for cavalry mounts," Katherine smiled, enjoying his enthusiasm. "You have a good eye for horseflesh. That mare you lent me is the smoothest ride I've ever had." "Rosie, she's special," Logan agreed. "Saved her from a mountain lion attack as a foal." "Nearly didn't make it. Yet you nursed her back to health," Katherine observed. "You seem to have a habit of rescuing those in need." Logan's expression softened as he looked at her. "Some things are worth saving." The air between them grew charged with unspoken feelings. Katherine was acutely aware of how alone they were, how intimate these evenings had become. Part of her warned that her emotions were heightened by trauma and gratitude, but another part, a growing part, recognized that what she felt for Logan Elliott went beyond mere thankfulness. On the fourth day, a rider approached the ranch. Logan spotted him from the corral where he was mending a broken fence rail. He motioned for Katherine to go inside while he walked out to meet the visitor, his hand resting on his holstered revolver. To his relief, it was Liam, looking trail-weary but determined. "Thought I might find you here," Liam said as he dismounted. "Any trouble following you?" Logan asked, scanning the horizon. "Don't think so," Liam replied. "I took the long way around just to be sure." Inside, Liam gratefully accepted the coffee Katherine offered him, warming his hands around the mug. "What brings you all this way?" Logan asked, settling into a chair across from his friend. "Information," Liam said. "And this." He reached into his coat and withdrew a folded document. "Found this at the county clerk's office. Friend of mine works there, let me in after hours." Logan unfolded the paper, a deed transfer for the Vance property, bearing Samuel Vance's signature. "That's not my father's handwriting," Katherine said immediately, peering over Logan's shoulder. "Not even close." "Exactly," Liam nodded. "It's a forgery, and not a very good one at that, but it was enough for Judge Wilson to approve the transfer." Logan studied the document. "This is a start. What else?" "Better news," Liam grinned. "I found someone willing to testify about what really happened at the Vance place. One of Kane's men, fellow named Jenkins. He was there, saw everything, and he's developed a conscience, or maybe just a yellow streak. Either way, he wants out." "Can we trust him?" Logan asked skeptically. "I think so," Liam replied. "He's scared, says Kane's getting more violent, worried about witnesses. Jenkins figures it's just a matter of time before Kane decides he's a liability too." Katherine leaned forward eagerly. "Where is this Jenkins now?" "Hiding in my storeroom at the saloon," Liam said. "But he won't stay in Silverwood much longer. Says he's heading to California on tomorrow's stage. If you want his testimony, you'll need to get it before then." Logan and Katherine exchanged looks. "That means going back to town," Logan said. "It's risky." "So is letting our only witness disappear," Katherine countered. "There's more," Liam added grimly. "Kane knows you're hiding out here, Logan. One of his men recognized your horse at the livery in town. They're planning to ride out here tomorrow." Logan stood abruptly. "Then we need to move tonight. Get to Jenkins, secure his testimony, and be on the trail to Helena before Kane arrives." "I can delay him," Liam offered. "Spread word that I saw you headed north, might buy you an extra day." "Do it," Logan nodded. "And Liam, be careful. Kane's not a man to cross lightly." "I've dealt with worse," Liam said with a wry smile. Confederate Army taught me that much. As Liam prepared to leave, Katherine packed their few belongings. Within an hour, they were ready to ride, the sun just beginning to set behind the western mountains. "We'll take the forest trail," Logan told her as they mounted up. "It's longer but offers better cover. If we ride through the night, we can reach Silverwood by dawn." The journey through the darkened forest was tense, the night alive with sounds that set their nerves on edge. Every snapping twig might be a pursuer, every shadow a potential ambush. They rode close together, speaking little, each lost in thoughts of what lay ahead. Dawn found them on the outskirts of Silverwood, the town still mostly sleeping. They left their horses at Jebediah's livery, the old man asking no questions as he accepted Logan's coins. "Back door of the Silver Dollar," Logan told Katherine as they made their way through the quiet streets. "Less chance of being seen." They slipped into the saloon through the service entrance, finding Liam waiting for them in his office. "Jenkins is upstairs," he informed them. "Room 3, but there's a complication." "What kind of complication?" Logan asked warily. "Kane's been here asking questions," Liam replied. "I don't think he knows about Jenkins specifically, but he knows something's afoot. He's got men watching the stage depot." "Then we'll need another way out of town," Logan said. "Already arranged," Liam nodded. "Freight wagon leaving for Helena at noon. Driver's an old friend owes me a favor." "He'll take you as far as Boulder Creek." "And Jenkins?" Katherine asked. "That's up to him," Liam shrugged, "but I reckon he'll take any way out of Kane's reach." They found Jenkins in the upstairs room, a nervous, thin man with darting eyes and hands that wouldn't keep still. He practically jumped out of his skin when they entered. "You're Elliott?" he asked, eyeing Logan suspiciously. "That's right," Logan confirmed, "and this is Miss Vance." Jenkins' gaze flicked to Katherine, recognition and shame crossing his face. "I'm sorry about your pa, miss, I didn't." "I mean, I was just following orders." "Tell us what happened," Katherine said, her voice remarkably steady. Jenkins swallowed hard. "We rode out to your place on Kane's orders, said we were just going to put pressure on your pa to sign the deed, but Kane, he was in a mood that day. Started beating on your pa right away." Katherine flinched but nodded for him to continue. "Your pa told you to run," Jenkins recalled. "Kane sent me and Thorpe after you, but you know that country better than we do. Lost you in the hills." He paused. "When we got back, your pa was dead." "Shot in the head." Kane said he tried to grab his gun. "That's a lie," Katherine said fiercely. "My father didn't own a gun, he hated them." Jenkins nodded. "I know. Kane planted one on him afterward, then we took the body to town, made up the story about him trespassing on Blackrock land." "Are you willing to swear to this before a U.S. Marshal?" Logan asked. "I am," Jenkins confirmed. "Got it all written down, too." He produced a sealed envelope from his jacket. "Figured my word alone might not be enough." Logan took the envelope, tucking it securely inside his vest. "You've done the right thing, Jenkins." "Hope so," Jenkins muttered. "Because if Kane finds me, I'm dead." They arranged for Jenkins to meet them at the freight wagon at noon. As they headed back downstairs, Liam pulled Logan aside. "Word just came in," he said quietly. "Kane and his men left town an hour ago, heading for your ranch." "Good," Logan nodded. "That gives us a clear path to the freight depot." "Be careful anyway," Liam warned. "Kane's not a fool, he might have left men behind." Their caution proved warranted. As they walked toward the freight depot at midday, Katherine spotted one of Kane's men lounging outside the general store, watching the street. "Don't look," she murmured to Logan, slipping her hand through his arm and leaning close as if sharing an intimate moment. Across the street. The man in the red shirt. Logan laughed as if she'd said something amusing, using the movement to glance casually in the direction she'd indicated. "I see him. Keep walking naturally." They continued past, Logan steering them down a side alley before the man could get a clear look at their faces. "The freight depot is just behind that warehouse," he told Katherine, pointing ahead, "but we'll have to cross open ground to reach it." "What if they're watching it?" Katherine asked. "Then we create a distraction," Logan replied, his mind working quickly. "Wait here." Before she could protest, he was gone, slipping through the maze of alleyways. Katherine pressed herself against the wall of the building, trying to appear casual while her heart hammered in her chest. Minutes crawled by with excruciating slowness. Suddenly, shouting erupted from the direction of the main street. Peering around the corner, Katherine saw people running toward what appeared to be a fight outside the saloon. The man in the red shirt abandoned his post, hurrying to see what the commotion was about. Logan reappeared at her side, slightly breathless. "That won't last long, let's move." They hurried across the open yard to the freight depot, where a large wagon stood loaded with supplies. The driver, a burly man with an impressive beard, nodded to them as they approached, Liam's friends. He asked gruffly, "That's right," Logan confirmed. "Climb in the back," the driver instructed. "Stay under the tarp until we're clear of town." They had just settled themselves among the crates and barrels when Jenkins arrived, looking even more nervous than before. "Saw the fight," he panted as he clambered into the wagon. "That you're doing, Liam's," Logan replied. He always did know how to create a timely disturbance. The wagon lurched into motion, the driver calling to his team of oxen. Katherine held her breath as they rolled past the buildings of Silverwood, expecting at any moment to hear shouts of discovery. But the streets remained relatively quiet, the townsfolk still distracted by the fight. Once they were clear of town, the driver called back to them. "You can come out now. We're on the open road." Katherine emerged from beneath the tarp, blinking in the sudden sunlight. The road stretched ahead of them, winding through the rolling foothills toward the distant mountains. Behind them, Silverwood was already shrinking into the landscape. How long to Boulder Creek? Logan asked the driver. "Be there by nightfall if the weather holds," the man replied. "From there, it's another 2 days to Helena on horseback." Katherine settled back against a crate, relief washing over her. They had the forged deed and Jenkins' testimony. Soon they would reach U.S. Marshal Hayward in Helena, and justice for her father would be within reach. But as she looked at Logan's profile, strong and determined against the backdrop of the Montana sky, she realized that justice was no longer her only concern. Somewhere along this dangerous journey, her heart had found someone it wasn't ready to leave behind. The wagon rolled steadily northward through the afternoon, following the rutted road that served as the main artery between the mining towns of the territory. Jenkins eventually dozed off, exhausted by fear and the rhythmic motion of the wagon. Logan and Katherine sat side by side, watching the landscape unfold around them. "What will you do?" Logan asked quietly. "After this is over," Katherine considered the question. "I don't know. The homestead is all I've known for years, but even if we succeed in proving Blackrock's crimes, I'm not sure I can go back there, not after. Too many memories." Logan nodded understanding. "Yes," Katherine agreed, "but I have no other home." Logan was silent for a long moment. "You could stay," he said finally. "In Montana, I mean, it's a hard country, but a good one." Katherine glanced at him, sensing there was more to his suggestion than he was saying. "And do what? Whatever you want," Logan replied. "There's opportunity here for those willing to work for it." Before Katherine could respond, the driver called back to them. "Riders coming up fast behind us." Logan was on his knees instantly, peering through a gap in the wagon's canvas cover. 3 men, he reported grimly, riding hard. Could be coincidence, but... "Kane's men," Jenkins said, now fully awake and trembling. "Has to be. How did they find us?" Katherine wondered aloud. "Doesn't matter now," Logan said, checking his revolver. "What matters is what we do about it." The driver urged his oxen to greater speed, but the heavily laden wagon was no match for determined horsemen. The riders were gaining rapidly. "There's a bend in the road ahead," the driver shouted. "Wooded area beyond might be your best chance." Logan made a quick decision. "When we reach those trees, we jump, head into the forest and split up. Katherine, you and Jenkins head north toward Boulder Creek. I'll lead them away to the west." "No," Katherine protested. "We stay together." "We can't outrun them together," Logan argued. "This gives us the best chance." You have the evidence, you need to get it to Marshal Hayward. The wagon lurched around the bend, momentarily out of sight of their pursuers. The driver slowed just enough for them to jump safely. Go, Logan urged, helping Katherine down from the wagon. I'll find you in Boulder Creek. Katherine grasped his arm. Promise me. Logan's eyes met hers, intense and determined. I promise. With that, he was gone, crashing through the underbrush in a westerly direction. Katherine and Jenkins headed north, moving as quickly and quietly as possible through the dense forest. Behind them, they heard shouts as their pursuers discovered the wagon was now minus its passengers. A moment later, gunshots rang out. They're following Elliott, Jenkins whispered, relief evident in his voice. Katherine's heart clenched with fear for Logan, but she pressed on, knowing that the best thing she could do for him now was to complete their mission. They traveled through the forest for hours, the afternoon sun filtering through the pine canopy above them. Jenkins proved to be a capable woodsman despite his nervous disposition, helping Katherine navigate the difficult terrain. As dusk approached, they reached a small stream. Boulder Creek can't be more than 5 miles ahead, Jenkins said, kneeling to drink from the clear water. If we push on, we could reach it by. His words were cut short by the crack of a rifle. Jenkins jerked backward, a look of surprise on his face as a crimson stain blossomed on his chest. He collapsed beside the stream without another word. Katherine dropped to the ground instinctively, her heart pounding as she scanned the trees for the shooter. Nothing moved in the gathering darkness. After a long moment, she crawled to Jenkins' side, but one look told her he was beyond help. With shaking hands, she searched his pockets, finding nothing of value except a small knife, which she took. The evidence they needed was still with Logan, the forged deed and Jenkins' written testimony safely tucked in his vest. Katherine weighed her options. Continuing alone to Boulder Creek was risky, but going back to find Logan was even more dangerous, and if he'd been captured or worse. She refused to complete that thought. Logan Elliott was too resourceful, too determined to be taken easily. She had to believe he was still free, still working toward their goal. Decision made, Katherine rose and continued northward, moving more cautiously now. Night fell completely, making progress difficult, but the stars provided enough light to keep her generally on course. She walked until exhaustion forced her to stop, finding shelter beneath a fallen tree. Despite her fatigue, sleep came fitfully, filled with dreams of gunshots and pursuit. She awoke at dawn, stiff and cold but resolute. Boulder Creek was her destination, and from there, somehow, she would find Logan again. Mid-morning brought her to the edge of the forest. Below, in a small valley, lay the settlement of Boulder Creek, little more than a cluster of buildings around a stagecoach stop, but a welcome sight nonetheless. Katherine paused, scanning the area for any sign of Kane's men before beginning her descent. The town appeared peaceful, with no unusual activity that she could detect. Still, caution was necessary. She adjusted her borrowed dress, attempted to smooth her tangled hair, and walked openly down the main street as if she belonged there. The stagecoach depot was her first stop. The station master, a weathered man with kind eyes, looked up as she entered. "Help you, miss?" "Yes," Katherine replied, summoning a smile. "I'm looking for information about the stage to Helena." "Leaves tomorrow morning," the man said. 6 o'clock sharp, one way." "Yes," Katherine confirmed, counting out coins from the small purse Logan had given her before they separated. As she paid for her ticket, she asked casually, "Has anyone else come through here recently, heading for Helena?" A tall man, light hair, blue eyes. The station master studied her curiously. "Can't say as I recall anyone matching that description. You expecting someone?" "A friend," Katherine said, trying to keep the worry from her voice. "We were separated on the journey. I thought he might be waiting here." "Well, this is a small place," the man offered. "If he's in town, you'll find him easily enough." But a thorough search of Boulder Creek yielded no sign of Logan. Katherine checked the small hotel, the general store, and the lone saloon, describing Logan to anyone who would listen. No one had seen him, As evening approached, Katherine took a room at the hotel, using more of Logan's money. She sat by the window, watching the road from the south, hoping against hope to see a familiar figure approaching. Sleep eventually claimed her, but she was awakened in the darkest hours by a soft knocking at her door. Heart racing, she approached cautiously. "Who is it?" she whispered. "Katherine, it's me." Logan's voice sent a wave of relief crashing over her. She opened the door to find him standing there, disheveled and exhausted but wonderfully alive. Without thinking, she threw her arms around him, holding him tightly. "I thought." She began, her voice muffled against his shoulder. "I know," he said, returning her embrace. "I'm sorry it took so long." Inside her room, Logan explained what had happened after they separated. "Two of them followed me west, led them on a merry chase before I managed to circle back. Found the wagon driver on the road. He told me what direction you'd gone." "Jenkins is dead," Katherine told him, the memory still fresh and painful. "Shot by someone in the forest. I couldn't see who." Logan's expression darkened. "Had to be the third rider. Must have circled around while the others chased me." He patted his vest. "But the evidence is still safe. We can take the stage to Helena tomorrow." "And then?" Katherine asked. "And then we see justice done," Logan replied firmly. They departed on the morning stage as planned, the journey to Helena passing without incident. The territorial capital was a far cry from the rough mining towns they'd left behind. A proper city with brick buildings, boardwalks, and an air of permanence that Silverwood lacked. The U.S. Marshal's office was located in a solid stone building near the center of town. Marshal Daniel Hayward proved to be everything Liam had promised: a tall, imposing man with a reputation for fairness and an intense dislike of corruption. He listened gravely as Katherine and Logan presented their evidence and told their story, from the attack on the Vance homestead to Jenkins' murder in the forest. "This is serious business," Hayward said when they finished. "Blackrock Mining has powerful friends, even here in Helena. But murder is murder, regardless of who commits it." He examined the forged deed carefully. "This alone might be enough to bring charges, with your testimonies and Jenkins' written statement." "Will it be enough?" Katherine pressed. Hayward considered. "It should be, but these cases can be complicated. Witnesses disappear, evidence gets lost." He looked up at them, his expression resolute. "Not this time, though, I give you my word on that." He insisted that Katherine and Logan remain in Helena under his protection, while he assembled a posse to ride to Silverwood and arrest Victor Kane. They took rooms at a respectable boarding house near the marshal's office, finally able to relax somewhat under Hayward's watchful eye. That evening they sat together on the boarding house's front porch, watching the sunset paint Helena's buildings in gold. For the first time since her father's death, Katherine felt a sense of peace. "What will you do now?" Logan asked, echoing his question from days earlier. Katherine looked at him, really looked at this man who had risked everything for her. "I've been thinking about that, about staying in Montana." Logan's expression remained carefully neutral. And I think I could make a life here," Katherine continued. "Not at the homestead, you were right about the memories, but somewhere new, somewhere I could start fresh." "Helena's a fine city," Logan observed, though there was a note of something like disappointment in his voice. "It is," Katherine agreed, "but I was thinking of somewhere a bit smaller. Somewhere with mountains on the horizon and room to breathe." She gathered her courage. "Somewhere near a certain ranch, perhaps." Logan turned to face her fully, hope dawning in his eyes. "Katherine, these past days have been the worst of my life," she said softly. "But they've also shown me something important, that when everything is stripped away, what matters is having someone beside you who won't falter. Someone brave and kind and true." She reached for his hand. "Someone like you, Logan Elliott." Logan entwined his fingers with hers. "Are you certain? Your life's been turned upside down. I wouldn't want you to make a decision you might regret." "The only thing I'm certain of is that I'm not ready to say goodbye to you," Katherine replied honestly. "The rest we can figure out together, if you're willing." In answer, Logan leaned forward and kissed her gently at first, then with growing intensity as she responded. When they finally parted, both were breathless. "I've wanted to do that since the moment you opened your eyes in my bedroom," Logan admitted. "Even with your face bleeding and your dress torn, you were the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen." Katherine laughed softly. "Not the most romantic first meeting. Maybe not," Logan smiled, "but it was ours." 3 days later, Marshal Hayward returned to Helena with Victor Kane in custody. The evidence against him was overwhelming, and with the territorial judge taking a personal interest in the case, justice moved swiftly. Kane was charged with the murder of Samuel Vance and the attempted murder of Katherine. Additional charges were being prepared against Blackrock Mining Company for land fraud and intimidation. "Your father's property will be returned to you," Hayward informed Katherine after Kane's arraignment, "though it may take some time for the legal proceedings to conclude." "Thank you, Marshal," Katherine said sincerely. "For everything." "Don't thank me," Hayward replied. "Thank that man of yours. Not many would have stood against Blackrock the way he did." Katherine glanced across the street where Logan was waiting, his tall figure distinctive among the pedestrians. "I intend to," she smiled. They returned to Logan's ranch a week later, the journey much easier without the threat of pursuit hanging over them. As they crested the final hill and the ranch house came into view, Logan reined his horse to a stop. "What is it?" Katherine asked, drawing alongside him. Logan gestured toward the horizon, where the mountains stood sentinel against the sky. "Just wanted to see it through your eyes." "It's not much compared to some spreads, but it's perfect," Katherine said and meant it. The modest ranch house, the corral, the barn, they weren't grand, but they were solid and real. A place where a life could be built. Over the weeks that followed, they settled into a routine. Katherine took over the management of the household, while Logan focused on the ranch work. They rode into Silverwood occasionally for supplies, finding the town subtly changed since Blackrock's downfall. People who had once averted their eyes now nodded in greeting, some even offering thanks for their role in exposing Kane's crimes. Liam, whose testimony had been instrumental in convicting Kane, expanded his saloon business, adding rooms for travelers and improving the establishment's reputation. He became a frequent visitor to the Elliott Ranch, bringing news and often staying for supper. One evening in late autumn, as the first snow dusted the distant peaks, Logan asked Katherine to walk with him to the ridge overlooking the valley. The sunset was spectacular, painting the sky in shades of crimson and gold. "I've been thinking," Logan said as they stood side by side, taking in the view. "A dangerous pastime," Katherine teased, pulling her shawl tighter against the evening chill. Logan smiled, but there was a nervousness to him that caught her attention. "I've been thinking about the future, about us." Katherine's heart quickened. "What about us?" "I know it hasn't been long," Logan began, turning to face her fully. "And I know that you've been through more than anyone should have to endure, but these past months with you, they've been the happiest of my life." "Mine too," Katherine said softly. Logan took her hands in his. "I love you, Katherine Vance. I think I've loved you since I found you on the prairie, brave and defiant despite everything." He dropped to one knee, producing a small ring from his pocket, a simple gold band with a single modest diamond. "Will you marry me, make this ranch our home, build a life here together?" Tears welled in Katherine's eyes, but they were tears of joy. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, Logan Elliott, I will marry you." He slipped the ring onto her finger, then stood and pulled her into his arms, kissing her as the last rays of the sun gilded the landscape around them. They were married that winter in the small church in Silverwood, with Liam standing as Logan's best man and Mrs. Pemberton, who had traveled from town for the occasion, attending Katherine. Marshal Hayward made the journey from Helena, bringing news that the legal proceedings against Blackrock Mining were progressing well. After the ceremony, the small gathering celebrated at the Silver Dollar, which Liam had closed to the public for the occasion. As Logan and Katherine danced together, Liam raised his glass in a toast. To the bride and groom, he called. May your lives together be as beautiful as the circumstances of your meeting were not. Laughter rippled through the room, but Logan and Katherine exchanged a look that held deeper meaning. In the midst of violence and loss, they had found each other, a miracle neither had expected, but both now cherished beyond measure. Spring brought new beginnings. The mountain snows melted, feeding the streams that crisscrossed the valley. Green grass carpeted the rangeland, and wildflowers dotted the hillsides. Katherine planted a garden beside the ranch house, while Logan began breeding horses as he'd always dreamed. As summer approached, Katherine received a letter from Marshal Hayward. The final verdict had been rendered in the case against Blackrock Mining. The company was found guilty of multiple counts of fraud and intimidation. More importantly, all land seized through illegal means was to be returned to its rightful owners or their heirs. Your father's homestead is legally yours again, Logan said, reading the letter over her shoulder on the porch. Katherine leaned back against him, his arms encircling her waist. It's what he would have wanted, justice, not vengeance. What do you want to do with the land? Logan asked. Katherine considered the question. I'm not sure, I don't think I could live there again, but it's still part of your history, Logan finished for her. We could keep it. Use it for grazing, maybe. It's good land. I'd like that, Katherine nodded. A way to honor my father's memory. Logan kissed the top of her head. Then that's what we'll do. Later that summer, as they stood together on the porch watching a thunderstorm roll across the valley, Katherine took Logan's hand and placed it on her stomach. We're going to have a baby, she said simply. Joy transformed Logan's face as he pulled her into a gentle embrace. A family, he whispered against her hair. Our family. In the years that followed, the Elliott ranch prospered. Logan's dream of raising horses became reality when the Army awarded him a contract for cavalry mounts. The herd grew, as did their reputation for quality stock. Katherine gave birth to a son they named Samuel, after her father. 2 years later, a daughter joined the family, Elizabeth, named for Logan's sister. The ranch house expanded to accommodate the growing family, but its heart remained the same, a place of warmth and love. Built on the foundation of a promise made when a battered woman stumbled across the prairie into the arms of a cowboy who vowed that no one would ever hurt her again. On the 5th anniversary of their meeting, Logan and Katherine rode together to the spot where he had found her that fateful day. The land looked different in the golden light of a peaceful afternoon, not threatening, but beautiful in its vastness. Do you ever think about how differently things might have turned out? Katherine asked as they sat on a blanket, watching their children play nearby. Every day, Logan replied honestly. One different choice if I'd been working on the south pasture instead of the east fence that day, if you'd gone in a different direction when you fled, and we might never have met. Katherine leaned against his shoulder. I used to think my father's death was nothing but a tragedy. And it was I still miss him every day, but out of that darkness came this life with you. She looked up at him, her eyes reflecting the love that had grown between them. A life I wouldn't trade for anything. Logan kissed her tenderly. Nor would I, Katherine, nor would I. As the sun began its descent toward the horizon, they gathered their children and rode back to the ranch house. Silhouetted against the Montana sky, a family forged in adversity but thriving in love. Their future stretching before them as vast and promising as the territory they called home.